After 3 years of fear, she discovers an unexpected protector. I won't allow him to harm you. Sarah clutched the strap of her nursing bag tightly, a habit formed from years of walking the same cracked sidewalks of her small Midwestern town. The air felt unusually heavy as she made her way to the library with Lily, where every creak of the floorboards echoed her inner turmoil. With each tick of the clock, her mind raced long shifts at the hospital, tending to the sick, felt lighter than returning home where shadows loomed larger than life, haunted by her ex-husband's threats. She brushed her fingers against the edge of her shirt, feeling the fabric that no longer felt safe. It was just a reminder of the escape she desperately sought but could not afford. At the library, the colorful picture books promised a refuge from reality, yet unease clung to her. While Lily flipped through pages filled with cheerful illustrations, Sarah's heart sank. Would her daughter ever experience a life devoid of fear? Her ex-husband's presence loomed like a dark storm cloud, and the very thought sent prickles of dread crawling across her skin. As much as she wanted to shield Lily, the worry gnawed at her. What if he found her? What if he found them? Just then, she noticed an older man at a nearby table watching them with gentle, discerning eyes. Tom, a retired detective, had been a familiar face in the library over the past few weeks. It was something about his aura, warm yet strong, like a lighthouse amidst the chaos. As their gazes connected, he offered a comforting nod, his expression holding an understanding that felt almost tangible. For the first time in a while, a spark of hope flickered in her chest. I won't allow him to harm you. Tom whispered sharply, drawing her attention even more. The simple words etched a mixture of relief and terror into her heart. Could someone else really care? She hesitated, wondering if leaning against this unexpected support would put both her and Lily in even greater danger. The pressure of her decisions felt overwhelming. Should she keep silent or speak out? Succumbing to circumstances had been simple, but could she dare to explore this path of courage? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Tom spoke, she felt the gravity of her decisions crushing down on her. The confrontation was imminent, the kind she had feared for years. Despite her exhaustion, Sarah locked eyes with Tom, and in his gaze, she recognized a flicker of determination that began to seep into her bones. She wanted nothing more than to jump away from the edge of this precarious cliff, yet stepping back would mean remaining within the abyss. Amidst her cluttered thoughts, she recoiled at the realization that the coming days would demand every ounce of her strength. Could she even find the courage to reveal the truth to Lily? The warmth of Tom's promise felt both like a blanket and a straitjacket, keeping her safe yet reminding her of the fragile wall that separated her from real freedom. And as desperation brewed, the phone rang back at home, jolting her into a state of alarm. She felt her breath hitch. Could it be him? Would her past finally breach the walls she had painstakingly built? The moment stretched on, caught between fear and the fervent hope for safety. It was time to confront the shadows, and the choice would change everything. The ringing faded into an intrusive buzz that shattered Sarah's uneasy peace. Her stomach churned at the possibility of the call being from him, the man whose name was etched in every corner of her mind. She glanced down at her phone, the screen dark but ominous in its silence. Tom's presence beside her felt like a lifebuoy tossed to a drowning swimmer, and yet she hesitated. What if reaching for it only pulled them both under? Do you need to answer? Tom's steady voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. He peered at her, brow furrowed with concern. In his gaze, a silent agreement was forged. It was time to confront the past, to face the danger that lurked with a fiery intensity just out of sight. Sarah's instincts took over and she shook her head, her throat dry. No, I can't. Not now. Lily, oblivious and lost in her world of whimsical characters, added an innocence that made Sarah's heart ache deeper. She shifted her focus, considering the toddler's joyful laughter echoing in the library, each giggle a reminder of the life she wanted to protect. But beneath the surface of that laughter, uncertainty gnawed at her. What if the laughter faded? "Let us leave," she finally whispered, pulling herself together to avoid the rising tide of panic. "We should go home." As they stepped outside, a sudden gust of wind surrounded them, harsh and unyielding. It mirrored the tumult within her, an instinct to flee and yet a yearning to stand her ground. Tom walked beside her, an unwavering presence that pushed her forward, and she appreciated the way his figure blocked out the shadows that loomed. Sarah fought against the torrent of memories flooding her mind. Each flashback felt like a weight piercing her resolve. His face, twisted with rage. The empty promises. The grounding fear she had learned to live with. But now, despite the terror, something within her stirred compassion for her own struggle. Desperation ignited a flicker of anger. Could she let fear run her life any longer? Before reaching the car, she turned to Tom, searching his eyes for grounding assurances. "What if I can't do this? What if he finds us?" Tom's response was steady, unwavering. "You have me, Sarah." Sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones we fight for ourselves. His words resonated deeply, echoing against the walls she had created. Years of silencing herself, years of hiding in plain sight, it was a trap she was ready to escape. The years as a nurse had taught her the value of strength, the power of compassion, both for others and herself. Yet, the mental block of her excess terror had dimmed that spark, until now. "Yes," she breathed, emboldened by an unexpected wave of determination. "I'm ready to fight." Tom offered a faint smile, acknowledging her metamorphosis. Sarah could almost feel the screws of her resolve tighten, solidifying her commitment not just to herself but to Lily as well. The thought of her daughter's future hanging in the balance became a shield against the anxieties. As they drove through the quiet streets, an idea began to crystallize in her mind. Maybe she could create a strategy, document the encounters, every conversation, each instance of intimidation. It was a plan in the making. With every detail documented, she could seek legal protection. Perhaps courts had tools for overcoming the monsters populating her imagination, and she would finally wield them. Sarah's heart raced with the thrill of an unexpected revelation. She still had control over the narrative, however twisted it had become. But just as hope illuminated her path forward, a familiar figure appeared at the corner of her eye, a shadow, a memory she had tried so hard to forget. A jolt of panic coursed through her, freezing her breath in her throat. What if this was the moment everything spiraled out of control? As the figure materialized in front of her, anxiety surged like a tidal wave. Sarah's heart thundered against her chest, drowning out the sounds of the world around her. She could barely grasp the details, but there was no mistaking who it was. Tom's grip tightened on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched. "Stay calm," he urged, a delicate tension threading through his voice. But Sarah felt anything but calm. Memories flashed, frantic moments when she felt utterly powerless, times when his rage had felt all-consuming. As they drew closer, she could see him more clearly, a smirk creeping across his face, an unsettling familiarity wrapped in arrogance. Her instinct screamed to run, to retreat and shield Lily from the malicious cloud that seemed to envelop him. "Don't look," Tom instructed, but the warning was half a heartbeat too late. Sarah's eyes locked on his, capturing the very essence of her past terror. "Hello, Sarah," he called, voice dripping with false sweetness that stung like venom. "Fancy seeing you here." Tom bristled beside her, but Sarah felt frozen, suddenly aware of the fragile thread that connected her present to the malevolence of her past. The power of her resolve felt like a fragile ember, one spark away from extinguishment. In that moment, she realized that her fear had been more than a consequence of his behavior, it had been a forfeiture of her power. She was no longer that frightened girl who had let silence be her only weapon. "What do you want?" she managed to say, each word a defiance against the years spent cowering. The depth of her voice surprised her, it quivered with an intensity that demanded respect. "A mother's love is a beautiful thing," he replied mockingly, eyes narrowing, scanning the space between Sarah and Tom with predatory intent. "I just wanted to reconnect for old time's sake." Tom leaned closer, an impenetrable barrier against the storm that brewed around them. You need to leave, he warned, voice low and serious. For the first time, Sarah felt a ripple of strength through her. This is my life now, she asserted, meeting his gaze head-on. You don't get to dictate that. What surprised her even more was the realization that his arrogance was crumbling beneath her unwavering stare. Perhaps the resolve that had blossomed during her drive home was more powerful than she had realized. Sweetheart, everyone knows you're just making excuses, he taunted, but the confidence in his voice was faltering. Behind the bravado, there lingered a shadow of doubt. She could almost hear the cracks forming, the imperfections in his facade exposed in the light of her newfound assertion. Tom's hand moved protectively over Sarah's, a silent pact to stand together. The warmth of their connection flooded her with courage, something she had long thought lost. Leave us alone, she demanded again, this time with the certainty of a woman reclaiming her narrative. The tension in the air was palpable, a standoff freezing time in its breath. How long could it go on? They were at a threshold, and Sarah felt her spirit swell. This was her moment of truth, her battle for not just herself but the life she'd built for Lily. Another shift in his expression suggested that he sensed the shift in power. You think this is over? He sneered, stepping back, yet the threat buzzed like electricity. No, it wasn't over. But as he turned away, Sarah felt a flicker of liberation. She may have faced one storm, but many echoed in the distance. I want to let you hurt us, she whispered under her breath, almost a promise, solidifying her conviction. As they drove off, the adrenaline pulsing through her veins faded into a cacophony of emotions: fear, anger, hope intermingling chaotically. She realized there were still mountains to climb. Her journey was far from over. Every step forward now was crucial, testing not just her will but the efficiency of her newfound resolve. What did it truly mean to stand firm against the shadows of her past? With every mile that took her further from him, the questions piled, each weighty with urgency because soon, she would need to confront those shadows head-on. How much longer could she maintain the fragile peace she crafted? The answer lingered in the air, waiting to unfold. The drive home was palpable with tension, the kind that gnawed at Sarah's insides, demanding action or at least a coherent strategy. She could still feel the unsettling weight of Tom's hand resting on hers, grounding her amidst the swirling chaos of thoughts. Was she really as strong as she had begun to believe, or was this confidence merely a fleeting miracle, a small flicker of light battling overwhelming darkness? Arriving home, Sarah hesitated at the front door, her hand hovering over the knob as if it held the answers to all her uncertainties. She could hear Lily's laughter drifting from the living room, a sound so sweet, so innocent, it ignited a fierce protectiveness within her. That laughter reminded her of everything worth fighting for, yet also of all the things she had to guard against. Tom, she called, her voice steadier than she felt. He appeared beside her almost instantly, a curious look in his eyes. Can you stay a while? His expression shifted to concern, but he nodded. They entered the house, the sound of Lily's giggles saturating the air, wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. Sarah forced a smile for her daughter, determined to shield her from the darkness lurking just outside their doorstep. Mommy! Look what I made! Lily shouted, bouncing over with a colorful drawing clutched in her small hands. The bright colors contrasted sharply with the shadow threatening to invade their lives. Sarah knelt down, embracing her daughter. That's beautiful, sweetie, she exclaimed, appreciating the vibrancy, the innocence. But as she gazed into Lily's wide, trusting eyes, the nagging uncertainty returned. Her resolve began to splinter. What if she couldn't protect her? What if the waves of her past crashed into their lives uninvited? Is everything okay? Tom's voice was soft as he observed her, the worry etched in his features, asking questions she couldn't voice. It was time to confront her fear, to extract the poison from her silence. Can you keep Lily busy for a moment? She asked, deciding to seize the opportunity to have a candid conversation. I need to talk to you about him. Tom's expression hardened at the mention of the name, as if it was a physical blow directed at him. Are you sure? Yes, she replied firmly, her conviction returning like a tide. I can't let this continue floating in limbo. He led Lily to the kitchen, where they sought out distractions, leaving Sarah alone with her swirling thoughts. The moment felt like a threshold of revelation, a necessity for clarity. Regaining her breath, she focused inward, questioning the storm brewing behind her eyes. She recalled the years, how fear had cocooned her, shrouding her in timid silence. Now, the realization of her true self crashed against her like waves. No more would she cower or allow anyone to strip her of her authority. When Tom returned, his presence ignited her determination. "We need to strategize," she said directly, feeling empowered by the idea of taking control. "He won't just disappear. We need to be prepared, mentally and practically." Tom nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly in encouragement. "What are you thinking?" "I can help whatever you need." Their conversation unfolded, filled with calculated decisions, binding them in a pact marked by undeniable urgency. Maps of fear morphed into plans of action, Sarah's mind racing as she discovered an unexpected layer of her resilience, laughing in the face of anxiety that had once colonized her thoughts. A sudden flicker of a memory swept over her. She remembered time spent preparing for moments when she would need to fight, not just for herself but for Lily too. She could assert her right to defend her haven, to be the steadfast protector. The resolve crystallized with each passing moment, and she could almost see the blueprint of her strategy materializing in her mind. But something deeper began to dawn upon her. It wasn't just about confronting her past, it was about redefining her future. "Tom, we need to put some distance between us and him," she stated, her voice imbued with boldness. "We'll figure it out. We can move if we have to." A silence filled the space between them, thick with possibility and lingering fear. Tom's eyes sparkled with unspoken admiration, and though uncertainty rattled in her chest, growing roots of determination pushed forth. But as she laid bare her newfound plan, a chilling thought unfurled. Is fleeing enough, or would she have to face him, truly face him, to end this once and for all? The answer hovered ominously on the edge of her consciousness, beckoning her to confront the reality she had desperately tried to escape. Would she embrace the ultimate challenge that waited just beyond her door? The time was nearing, and the reality of true confrontation loomed on the horizon, threatening every fragile thing she had built. With each heartbeat, the urgency spiked. Her past, her fears, and their future spiraled dangerously close. The moment of truth was upon her, and this time, the battles she waged would carve the path ahead. In that moment of clarity, she whispered to herself, invigorated by the dawning reality, "I want to let him define me." But would her determination withstand the shadows yet to come? The next morning, a cloud of resolve enveloped Sarah as she rose before dawn. The soft light of the rising sun slipped through drawn curtains, casting warm hues across the walls. A stark contrast to the chill that had seeped into her bones the night before, the day felt like a blank canvas, one she was determined to paint with bold strokes of action and courage. She hurried through her morning routine, a newfound vigor propelling her hands as she braided Lily's hair, her daughter chirping delightfully about her plans for the day. Each strand felt symbolic, a knot tying her determination to protect Lily more tightly. When they stepped into the quiet of the kitchen, the mundane sounds of pouring cereal and clinking spoons mingled with the chaos inside her mind. "Mommy, can we play after school?" Lily asked, her bright eyes filled with innocence, unaware of the storm gathering just outside their door. "Of course, sweet pea," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. Yet, a gnawing anxiety simmered beneath the surface. Could she protect this laughter? Would her strategies hold against the darker echoes of her past? She pushed the thoughts aside. Today was about momentum, taking the first step towards safety. In the kitchen, Tom arrived just as she poured coffee into her mug, sharp and dark. His presence was comforting, a reminder of the partnership they were forging through shared determination. "Any thoughts on how to start putting some distance?" he asked, his brow slightly furrowed with concern. Sarah met his gaze, the lingering fear now transforming into a steely resolve. "I think I need to take control of my story. It's time for me to confront him, to set boundaries that make it clear he has no hold over us. It's time to find my voice." Tom's expression shifted from concern to admiration, realizing that her decision came from a deeper sense of empowerment. "You're right. And I'll be with you every step of the way. We can start by documenting everything that has happened. Gather evidence, maybe consult with someone who understands the legal side. Nodding, Sarah felt a sense of empowerment brightening her thoughts. Yes, we need to make this real. I have to show him that I am not afraid anymore. As they mapped out their approach, the gears in her mind began to turn, revealing hidden competencies she had never acknowledged. She was a strategist, a planner. Memories of her younger self, filled with ambition, flickered like embers in her mind. She wondered aloud, what if I hosted a meeting with my closest friends tonight? They can help. In numbers, there's strength. Yes. Tom exclaimed, the enthusiasm igniting in his voice. Support will reinforce your stance. If he sees that you're surrounded by allies, it sends a clear message. As Sarah contemplated her friends' loyalties, an unsettling question emerged. Would they rally to her side, or would her past isolate her further? She spent hours crafting a call to action and email invitation that bridged her fear with hope, urging friends to gather for a night of solidarity. There was a tremor in her hands as she hit send, but with it came a strange exhilaration, awakening dormant parts of her personality, her courage, her innate leadership qualities. While she waited, the hours stretched, populated with flashes of doubt. The uncertainty lingered, but under it simmered a current of excitement, a reminder that she was actively choosing to redefine her life. As night approached, the house breathed in anticipation, shadows growing long. Each familiar face arriving filled the space with warmth, her tribe, her support system. Sitting in a circle, sharing laughter and stories, she felt a slow unveiling begin. With each voice that joined in, she realized she was not just recovering, she was evolving. Before long, discussions shifted towards awareness and empowerment. I won't let fear win, Sarah declared, her voice quaking but resolute as she recounted past experiences. By the end of the evening, as her friends rallied behind her, she felt the embers of her younger self roaring to life, igniting a fierce determination within. They wouldn't just be witnesses, they would be part of her journey toward reclamation. Yet, as the laughter in the room thickened, a part of her remained wary. The pivotal moment was still ahead, creating firm, impenetrable boundaries with him. With the warmth of camaraderie nestled around her, a new thought crept into her mind, one that demanded to be addressed. Was she truly ready to confront this enemy of her past head-on? Or was she teetering on the edge of awakening something darker and more dangerous? With this question haunting her thoughts as the laughter subsided and her friends offered their support, a cold chill swept through her, reminding her that the toughest battles would soon begin. As the last echoes of laughter faded into the night, Sarah felt a tension coiling within her. The supportive presence of her friends surrounded her, yet the burden of confrontation loomed larger than ever. As she took a deep breath, the air felt thick with anticipation. She was stepping onto a battlefield that she had long avoided, and the stakes felt precariously high. Tom leaned closer, his voice a reassuring whisper. Are you ready, Sarah? This is not just about tonight. It's about the next move. Let us recap what you want to say. His eyes searched hers, gauging her readiness. She focused on him, her resolve hardening. This moment was not just about exposure, it was about power, reclaiming her narrative. I need to be clear. I must tell him that the past is gone and he has no right to intrude in our lives anymore. But I can't do it alone, she answered, her voice gaining strength with each word. She recognized this as the time to articulate her boundaries, her needs, her survival. As the conversation flowed among her friends, shared strategies emerged, community woven into individual resolve. They spoke of role play, simulations of confrontational dialogues that would enable her to rehearse responses, building an arsenal of words, thoughts, defenses. Each suggestion grounded her further into the roots of her strengths, her talents long buried under the weight of fears she once wore like armor. Your voice is your weapon now, one friend stated, her own fierce conviction resonating with Sarah. You must wield it. When he hears you speak, it will be like thunder to him. Absorbing this, Sarah felt embers of her former self glow brighter. The internal voice that had once whispered words of unworthiness transformed into a clarion call for action. She thought about her career over the past few years, Her voice had been stifled there too, a manager surrounded by dismissive colleagues who never valued her ideas. What if all that experience was conditioning her for this very moment? The thought invigorated her. She was not just a susceptible figure from her past, she was a competent woman capable of leading, empowering, and asserting her will. The next few days were a blur of planning and consultations. Legal jargon, boundaries, support networks of friends that grew deeper with each shared fear and laughter. It was a whirlwind of reclaiming fragments of her identity. She felt renewed purpose in every task, wielding the documents Tom helped her gather with growing confidence. However, doubt would poke its sharp head within her. What if her past proved to be an unyielding shadow that would swallow her strides? In those moments of hesitation, she reminded herself of Tom's reaction each time they discussed their strategy. "You're so much stronger than you think," he would say, his eyes brimming with faith. His belief became her shield to deflect the self-doubt that threatened her. But the night before her confrontation with him, as she lay in bed restless, her mind raced. Would he react violently? Would this moment affirm that past struggle or propel her into a more empowered future? A sharp knock on her door shifted her focus. It was Tom, holding a book, a collection of strong women's stories who faced their demons. "I thought this might help. Your battle is your own, but these tales remind us that we're capable of overcoming," he said, a gentle determination in his voice. Reading the words of women who had risen from ashes sparked a fire within Sarah. It was enough to quell some of the fear, reigniting the belief that she deserved power over her narrative. Morning dawned, and Sarah took to her reflection, determined to embody the warrior she had discovered within. The confrontation awaited, a storm brewing on the horizon. Resolute, she walked out into the day, steeling herself for what she must face. Yet, as she stepped closer to the moment, a troubling realization lodged itself in her mind. What if confronting him only opened a door to more chaos than closure? Would the past close in, or would she finally embrace freedom? The question lingered as she gripped her phone. It was time to call for reinforcements, time to let her voice resonate not just in her mind, but in the world outside. But just as she was about to dial, the phone buzzed loudly, and an unexpected message flickered on the screen, unraveling her carefully laid plans. "I know exactly where you are." A cold wave of anxiety rippled through Sarah as she read the message, the words heavy with foreboding. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder of the precarious moment she stood on. She felt exposed, as if the walls surrounding her were made of glass, transparent, vulnerable, and on the verge of shattering. "Sarah, what's wrong?" Tom's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. She realized she still held onto her phone, the screen flashing ominously in her trembling hand. She turned to him, her voice trembling. "It's a message. He knows where I am." Tom's expression transformed, his calm demeanor shifting into focused concern. "Did you want me to call the police?" "We can." "No," she interrupted sharply, the denial bubbling up instinctively. "That will only make things worse. I don't want to feel trapped, I want to confront this myself." The determination in her voice steadied her nerves, cutting through the panic that threatened to smother her. She was fighting more than just her past, she was battling the fear that had fed on her for years. The text was a chilling reminder that shadows lurk even in daylight. She had dedicated herself to dismantling the narrative he had created, but now she had to adapt once more. "Okay," Tom agreed, though the worry didn't leave his eyes. "But we need a plan. We're not facing this without a strategy." Drawing a deep breath, Sarah nodded. "We can't just react. We have to anticipate his moves. What if he tries to provoke me? You'll be prepared. Focus on what you want to say, and stick to that. If he comes at you sideways, remember you're in control now." His words were a lifeline, pulling her back to the resolute ground she'd found within. She began to map out her responses in her mind, a mental chess game against her opponent. Each tactic was a recalibration of her experience. She wasn't just a victim, she was a strategist poised for the encounter ahead. As they plotted together, a flicker of resolve ignited inside Sarah. Perhaps this moment was less about confronting her captor and more about reclaiming pieces of herself she had lost. She had never allowed herself to be proactive, always a step behind, but now she felt the power shift beneath her feet. The planning session was intense, filled with quiet moments of strategizing followed by bursts of invigorating dialogue. Sarah shared her boundaries, articulated her fears, and together they crafted scripts for the conversation. With each roleplay scenario, doubts were washed away like dust off a fresher stained canvas. She was painting over years of fear with strokes of assertiveness and clarity. However, the underlying tension persisted. The message was a reminder, and as the hour of confrontation approached, dread crept back into her veins despite the brave face she wore. Each passing minute felt like a countdown to an unknown cataclysm. The final preparation dragged on, and whispers of uncertainty flitted through her mind. What if he undermines everything I've built? No, she mouthed silently to herself, wrapping a hand around the token she had kept for herself, a small, smooth stone from the stream near her childhood home. It reminded her of the strength of the river, of how it continued to flow despite obstacles. I have to channel that strength. As they finished their preparations, Sarah heard the sound of her heart drumming an unsettling rhythm. She had empowered herself with words, but the moment awaited just beyond the door. As she stood at the threshold, phone in hand, another message chimed, "I'm coming for you." The finality of the words felt like a punch in the gut, leaving her breathless. The storm was here. Would she be swept away in the chaos or rise above it? With a resolute inhalation, she prepared to step forward, ready to confront not just him, but the parts of herself that had long remained in shadows. The battle was not only with the man who threatened her, it was within her own psyche, where newfound strength met lingering doubt. Tom's hand rested reassuringly on her back, a grounding reminder that she was not alone. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, but the question felt charged with the gravity of her decision. She nodded, her heart thrumming with a mixture of anxiety and adrenaline. The time had come to step into her power. But as she took her first step towards the confrontation, she realized something deeper was at stake than she had initially grasped. What truths would she uncover in the face of that old enemy waiting on the other side? Dread mingled with anticipation as she crossed the threshold. The moment had arrived, her reckoning, her liberation, or perhaps, just the beginning of a much larger battle. The door creaked open, revealing a stark room where every detail loomed like a specter. The air felt charged, thick with unresolved history and confrontation. Steeling herself, Sarah took a breath, reminding herself that this was a threshold of more than space. It was a passage into fear's dissolution and her potential reclamation. As her feet carried her forward, the simple act felt monumental. Each step was not merely physical, it resonated with the resolve she had gathered along her journey. The walls seemed to pulse with uncertainty, a reflection of the turmoil inside her. She could feel Tom's presence fading just slightly behind her, an anchor holding her steady yet just out of reach from this immediate confrontation. There he was. Jonathan. Sitting, as casual as if they were merely catching up over coffee. The smugness in his expression twisted her stomach. With every fiber of her being, she wanted to leap across the room and thrash out the anger pent up over the years. "Look who finally decided to show up," he said, arrogance dripping from every syllable. "Thought you'd run away like before." It was a taunt, a challenge, yet Sarah felt a flicker of something unexpected confidence. She straightened her back, taking comfort in the principles she had rehearsed with Tom. "I'm not who you think I am anymore." Her voice, even to her own surprise, carried a strength she hardly recognized. His amused smirk faltered, if only for a moment. "Is that right?" He leaned forward slightly, intrigued. "Enlighten me. I'm not here for your games. I'm here to let you know I'm reclaiming my life." Words flowed through her, fueled by a blend of adrenaline and yearning for truth. "Reclaiming, huh?" His eyebrows furrowed, but she refused to grant him the satisfaction of fear evident on her face. "I've lived in your shadow for far too long." This was it, a revelation. Sarah drew on the past burdens but redefined their presence, transforming agony into clarity. "You're not my captor anymore. Today, I'm the one with the power." His dismissive laughter grated on her resolve, but she pushed through, reinforcing her ground. "You think fear was all I carried? The more you tried to control me, the more I learned about who I truly am. She watched him closely. In that moment, his facade of control began to crack. Beneath the bravado, she could see uncertainty, a reflection of the shift in power. It invigorated her further, challenging her to delve deeper into herself. "Stop pretending you're superior, it's pathetic." It felt cathartic to spit out those words. With them came a wave of relief, and amid her anxiety, a burgeoning empowerment settled in its place. This was more than confrontation, it was an uncovering, a profound self-discovery. "What makes you think you can turn the tables now?" He shot back, but the edge was duller, the dismissal weaker. Seeing his confidence waver was like shedding a heavy cloak she had worn far too long. "Because I've rebuilt my life." She enunciated every word, internalizing the weight of them. "Because I'm determined. And most importantly, I'm not alone anymore." A flash of confusion flickered in his eyes as he recognized that this was not the same Sarah he once controlled. What had begun as an earnest confrontation was morphing into something unexpected, an unraveling of identities, a duel not just of power but of past narratives. As their tension hung thick in the air, mingling with the bitterness of old wounds, she realized that he was as much a part of her recovery as Tom was a catalyst for her transformation. With each word exchanged, Sarah was not only confronting the truth of their history but also revealing her own growth. "Tell me how you plan to stop me," he dared, but she could see the tremor of fear trembling beneath his bravado. "I don't need to stop you," she replied, steadier than before. "I just need you to understand that I won't allow you to hinder my future." The air shifted again. There was something pivotal in the room, a depth to the moment sinking in. And then, she noticed the message of impending return, an echo lingering in her mind. If Jonathan's control had begun to dwindle, a larger complexity lurked just beneath the surface. This was not just a battle with a man who once held power over her, it was an awakening to the web of threats waiting beyond this room. What awaited beyond this confrontation? The unpredictability of the next phase loomed large, teasing her thoughts and escalating her determination. Would she find ironclad resolve in her newfound strength, or would the ghosts of her past resurge with renewed ferocity? With a determined fervor in her heart, Sarah grasped the opportunity to delve deeper, preparing to draw on the hidden competences she would need for the chapters surely unfolding ahead. Sarah felt the weight of the moment settle like a thick fog around her, each breath inflating her resolve but simultaneously challenging her inner fears. Jonathan's confidence had cracked, yet the room pulsed with an undercurrent of danger that warned her this confrontation was only the beginning. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, awakening an unexpected sense of urgency. She had fought too hard to back down now. "Power isn't merely about control, Jonathan," she stated firmly, the intensity in her voice sharpening with every word. "It's also about recognizing when to let go. You were the one who held on too tightly." As she spoke, she could feel Tom's supportive aura just behind her, a reminder of the strength she had cultivated since leaving Jonathan's sphere. It bolstered her as she continued, each phrase a step toward disarming the remnants of fear lingering in her heart. "You may think you've shaped me, but I've transformed. This is my narrative now." His sneer returned, a facade crafted from years of practice in manipulation. Yet, beneath that guise lay the faltering echoes of the control he once enjoyed, and it was those cracks that Sarah focused on. They illuminated the fundamental truth: Jonathan's power had always emerged from her acquiescence. She chose this moment to expose his vulnerabilities, the very ones that had haunted her for so long. "I was afraid of you," she admitted, not to portray weakness, but to release the shackles binding her to the past. "But now I'm afraid of nothing, not even the shadows you draw on." The way Jonathan's expression shifted was intoxicating. She relished in every flicker of uncertainty that crossed his face, each shift revealing her progress and resilience. The confrontation was no longer about winning or losing, it was about her evolution, a triumph of spirit she had long yearned to claim. "Why do you care about my past?" Jonathan spat, though his voice lacked the venom it had moments before. "It doesn't dictate your future." "No, it doesn't," she countered. Her voice rang clearer now, a chime against the chaos that loomed. "But it forged who I am today. It taught me not to yield but to push back against the odds." In that split second, Sarah understood the catalytic role Jonathan played in her journey, not simply as an antagonist she had to escape but as a stark contrast, defining the boundaries of her potential. She leaned forward, a defiance glimmering in her eyes. "You were a lesson I needed to survive. Now, I'm ready to thrive." The air around them thickened, rattled by unspoken emotions and the charged energy of the exchange. Every minute's second bore significance, reverberating with the awareness of impending changes yet to unfold. Sarah knew there were still shadows lurking beyond this room, others waiting to challenge her resolve. It was in that realization, standing poised at the edge of transformation, that an idea formed, a plan rooted in her new understanding. She envisioned a network, a collective of allies she could rally to create a buffer against threats that weren't limited to just Jonathan. "I'm not just reclaiming my life," she declared with surprising clarity. "I'm building it anew. And I won't let you damage the foundation I've laid." As Jonathan's bravado collapsed further, it struck her that this confrontation was only the prelude to a larger battle. There were still unresolved issues, unresolved figures from her past that loomed over her future like specters. If Jonathan's facade had diminished, what would come next? What figures remained, still holding power in the shadows? The very essence of her journey was at stake, untangling the threads of trauma and forging connections that would bolster her newfound independence. Her heart raced at the opportunity to embrace the challenge ahead, but a creeping doubt flickered at the edges of her mind. Before she could ponder further, a startling noise broke through the tension, the sound of a door slamming in the distance, heavy and foreboding. Whatever it signaled, it was a reminder that the fight wasn't over. The future loomed ahead, unpredictable and exhilarating. What awaited her on the other side? Would she have the strength to confront the next wave of challenges, or would she unravel in the face of past complexities? Sarah took a breath, readying herself for a journey that would soon redefine everything she had fought for. The confrontation hung in the air, teetering on the edge of transformation. With lingering echoes of her past now shifting into tangible doubts about what lay ahead, Sarah felt the gravity of the moment grounding her, both heavy and liberating. "You're still nothing without your fear," Jonathan spat, but his voice lacked conviction. "You'll always rely on the shadows to define you." "No," she countered firmly, her determination rising like a tide. "You don't define me. I have learned to recognize fear not as an enemy, but as a teacher. I've grown beyond it." With each word, something remarkable occurred. Every taunt, every challenge from Jonathan was met not with an understanding of an opponent but with the clarity of a woman who had finally understood her worth. In this exchange, Sarah was no longer a frightened figure, she was a warrior. The shadows that once threatened her now felt more like ancient relics, each moment studied, each wound transformed into wisdom. The mess of emotions swirling around her began to settle, crystallizing into a profound sense of purpose. "Maybe I was nothing without you," she admitted, her voice surging with newfound strength. But that's changed. As the words left her lips, she felt lighter. Each syllable shed years of burdens, exposing the core of her resilience. It wasn't just a rejection of his influence, it was an invitation to her future. As Jonathan's facade crumbled further, Sarah felt a surge of confidence course through her. She briefly glanced around the room, a reminder of what she had endured. The shadows were still lurking, but they were fewer now. They were beginning to scatter like smoke in the light of her assertion. "What are you planning to do?" he asked, the arrogance dimming from his tone. "Turn this into a sob story for others to rally around?" "No," she replied, smiling at the absurdity of his assumption. "I'm taking ownership of my narrative, and it's time to rally for those who share similar stories, who need their strength ignited. This isn't just my fight, it's a fight for anyone who has felt powerless." Understanding sparked something in her core. She wasn't alone in this battle. The walls of the room, heavy with the weight of their confrontation, suddenly felt like a crucial threshold. Beyond them lay allies who would embrace her story and amplify it. She imagined a gathering much like the one she had hosted with friends. Support, healing, and empowerment would spread in concentric circles far beyond her. She saw beyond this singular confrontation. Jonathan was merely a piece, a catalyst propelling her towards a mission forged both from pain and clarity. "Do you really think this is the end of me?" His tone shifted, a final attempt to strike her down. It's not the end, she smiled confidently, but it is the end of your control over me. It's just the beginning of reclaiming what's rightfully mine. With every declaration, she felt a fierce pride swell within her, a sense of accomplishment that reminded her of her role as a nurse, of healing, of empowering those around her. In that moment, her identity as a protector stretched beyond just her child. It enveloped every individual bound by trauma, beckoning to claim their voices. You've always underestimated me, she continued, feeling the power surge internally. Your intimidation? It's just a mask for the insecurity you hold. You may remain in others' shadows, but I will not stand in yours any longer. A swirl of emotion filled the air as they both stood on this cusp of transformation, she poised to take command of her life and he, stripped of his power. The echoes of a past life began to fade as Sarah embraced the weight of her narrative. It would carry her forward, where the ghosts of yesterday required confrontation, not retreat. In that fleeting moment, she saw Jonathan's expression shift, shock mingled with the dawning realization that his grip had loosened on her. Her metamorphosis constituted the threads of a future woven with possibility. What awaited her now was not the fear of the storm, but the strength of her unwavering resolve. I'm done living in your shadow, she declared, her voice echoing with conviction. I'm stepping into the light, and I want others to join me. As she looked at Jonathan, she felt no hate, only an odd sense of gratitude. The battle had birthed a surge of empowerment she could harness for herself and others. Your manipulation and fear tactics no longer have any hold on me. I can rise, inspire, and create the destiny I choose. As Sarah turned to leave the confrontation for the final time, she felt the shadows behind her flatten into insignificance. She was ready to embrace whatever came next, stepping into her future armed with a powerful arsenal of courage and resilience. Only this time, she claimed her story with grace. Walking out into the world beyond the room, Sarah felt a rush of freedom ignite within her. As she stepped toward the new chapters waiting to be crafted, the trembling anticipation of hope and empowerment nestled firmly within her heart, a promise that she would not just survive but thrive. And as she melded into the vibrant tapestry of life waiting for her, she held the bright truth close. Her narrative was uniquely hers to weave. The journey had unfolded with challenges, but now, she could face each new chapter with a strength that was authentically her own. Look in the mirror and see the victor reflected back. This is the moment to embrace your own journey of transformation. Step forward into the life you desire. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.